What is up, Revivalists? How's it going? It's Simon here from CD Revival, and today I'm going to do a ranking video. Not done a ranking video for quite a while anyway, probably at least a month, couple of months, I'm not too sure. It's been a while. Obviously been just going through the collection. We're into Q today, so we're going to kick it off with the ranking of the band Queen. Fantastic band, obviously, sadly not really going in any, well, they do tour, but they don't do albums, haven't done albums for years. And I'm going to rank the 15 studio albums that they did with Freddie Mercury. I'm not going to include the one they did with Paul Rodgers, so I don't necessarily consider that to be a proper Queen album. But yeah, great band, and probably a band that I forget about when I think about my favourite bands. You know, if you were to ask me my favourite bands, I'd probably be like, I don't know, Iron Maiden, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, Sabbath, you know, but Queen wouldn't necessarily be the first band to spring to mind, but they're definitely up there. They've done a lot of great stuff, and yeah, a lot of, I mean, the top albums I've really struggled to decide which ones are my favourites, and even the sort of the weaker albums towards the end of the list, they've all got redeeming features in some way or the other. One way or the other, anyway, in some way. But so yeah, I'm going to go through the ranking now. I don't have all of their albums, but I've got the majority of them. Starting off with number 15, which is an album I don't have, and that is the album Hot Space from 1982. It's their 10th studio album, and excuse me, yeah, very different sound for them. A lot more funky, a lot more dancey, influenced a lot by what Freddie Mercury was kind of going to a lot of clubs back then, so it's very influenced by him. Obviously he's usually a great songwriter, and does a lot of rocky stuff, but this one is, yeah, probably their least rock album of all. I was going to say it's not terrible, but it kind of is. It does have the track Under Pressure on it, with David Bowie on there, which is obviously a famous, iconic, like bass line, iconic track, decent track in general. Las Palabras de Amor is a good song on there as well. Brian May penned. That's not too bad. It's not one of their greatest tracks, but it's, yeah, one of the best tracks on the album. Things like Back Chat and Body Language are, yeah, they're not fantastic. Very dancey and very, yeah, almost cringeworthy, really. It's not a great album. I know it's got its fans, but I'm not really one of them. I don't think it's a very good album at all, and I think most people, I say not all, but I think most people would have it near the bottom of their Queen rankings. So that's number 15, and that's Hot Space from 1982. Number 14, I've gone for Flash Gordon, which once again is another one that I don't have. The first three, in fact, I don't have, and then, you know, the rest of them I do. Flash Gordon's their 9th album from 1980. It was the soundtrack to the Flash Gordon movie, which is super cheesy, but kind of cool. I remember at the time. I think I may have seen it at the cinema, but I've certainly seen it a fair few times since. Yeah, cheesy movie, but, you know, kind of cool in a cheesy way. Album is mostly instrumental, which is the reason it's at number 14. The two vocal tracks are the two best tracks really on there, which is the Flash theme, which obviously everyone knows, and the Hero, which is towards the end, which is a really cool, heavy, really good track, to be honest with you. So those two tracks are fantastic. The rest of them is kind of yeah, basically soundtrack instrumental stuff, which is, you know, not all bad, but it's, yeah, not the sort of thing you chuck on and listen to, like, you know, with great regularity. So not a complete sham, but not a triumph either. A decent album if you like soundtrack albums, say, with two real scorchers on there, which are Flash Theme and The Hero. So that's my number 14, Flash Gordon from 1980. Number 13, I've gone for Made in Heaven, which is their final album, 15th album, and that came out in 1995, so obviously a while after Freddie Mercury died. He'd done a lot of like vocal performances and part performances before he died, with the intention of the band going in and finishing them off. There's stuff like I Was Born to Love You, which was previously on Mr. Bad Guy album, his solo album. It's honestly, it's the album I've listened to least of Queen, so it probably might go up a few spaces if I'd listened to it a bit more, quite honestly. But it's not bad. It's quite quite low key, it's quite ballady, but there are some good songs on it. It's actually not too bad. What have I got? Too Much Love Will Kill You is a decent enough track. I think that's an older one as well. Let Me Live's quite decent. But I say I've not listened to it loads and loads, but it sits at number 13. Yeah, it's not a bad album. It's kind of okay. Now we're into stuff that I do own, which is the rest of them. Number 12, I've gone for this one, A Kind of Magic, and that's from 1986. It's their 12th album. Quite a big album for them, good selling album. Went straight to number 1 in the UK charts when it came out, hot on the heels of their Live Aid performance. So they were, very, very much in vogue at the time. Some good stuff on here and some bad stuff. I think it's quite poppy in a lot of ways. Obviously, One Vision, fantastic track, really heavy, brilliant way to start the album off. And then you've got A Kind of Magic, the Roger Taylor penned tune, which is quite poppy with some nice guitar bits on it. 1 Year of Love, which is kind of a soul ballad, not so keen on that. Pain Is So Close to Pleasure, not so keen on that at all. Friends Will Be Friends, it's a decent enough track, sing-along track, very catchy. And you've got Who Wants to Live Forever, which is a good sort of slow ballady one. Give Me the Prize, super heavy, really good. Apparently the band don't like it very much. Obviously it's very much a Brian May, very heavy song. Don't Lose Your Head, which is not a great song, and Princes of the Universe to finish off, which is another good heavy track. A lot of the songs, certainly the last three, Who Wants to Live Forever, and a couple of the others, were from the Highlander soundtrack, which most of this album is made up of. So it's a little bit patchy, it's a little bit hit and miss. I say the good songs are very good, like the One Visions, Give Me the Prize, Princes of the Universe, they're all really cool. Then you've got some middling tracks like the title track, and then the rest of it's a little bit kind of, for me, subpar, very poppy, but did very well for them, and by no means an awful album. It's fairly decent. So that's my number 12, and that is their 12th album from 1986, A Kind of Magic. Next up, I have got at number 11, The Game from 1980, first album of the 80s, 8th album in total. And their first album to use synths on it as well, which they'd already, they famously said no synths were used, etc., etc., on all their albums previously. Excuse me. Once again, I think this one's a little bit hit and miss. Some great tracks on here. Play the Game, great track. Dragon Attack is really, really cool, pretty heavy but funky. Funk rock potentially. Another one, Bites the Dust, famous one, really, really cool. It's got Crazy Little Thing Called Love on it, the famous rockabilly track that Freddie Mercury threw together in, I don't know, half an hour or something in the bath. And Save Me, which is another standout track on here. There's a few dodgy ones. Don't Try Suicide in particular, I think is, not the greatest one at all. But some good stuff on here, and some sort of, it's definitely a cross between good and bad on this one. Just puts it ahead of A Kind of Magic. But it is a good album once again, and it's got some absolutely, as all their albums have, got some fantastic tracks on it. But they've done a lot of really good stuff, so that puts this one down in number 11 from 1980, The Game. Ahead of that, I have got The Miracle from 1989 at number 10. This is their 13th album in total, and Freddie was starting to become a little bit ill by this point. But I think this album is pretty banging for the most part. Side 1 is excellent, the old side 1 as you would call it. Party's not a bad start. Khashoggi's Ship is a really cool one. Miracle, excellent. I Want It All, really heavy. Invisible Man, I do like that as well. Sort of with a bit of a Ghostbusters-y vibe on it. Breakthrough, excellent. Pretty driving, good, heavy track. Scandal, I like. Was It All Worth It? Excellent stuff. Quite, I wouldn't say it's a heavy album, but Brian May's stamp is all over this. He does a lot of really cool guitar stuff on it, even on tracks like The Invisible Man, which is not like a heavy one. It's got a really cool Steve Stevens-esque guitar solo bit on it. There's a lot of, Brian really does, you know, throw his guitar into this album quite a lot, and some really, yeah, it just shows you what a superb guitarist he is. Well worth listening to. I think it's a really good album, to be honest with you. The Miracle from 1989 at number 10. Ahead of that, I've got their final album they did when Freddie was alive. That's Innuendo. That's at number 9. So this is their 14th album in total. This came out in 1991. I think he died, I don't know, 6 months after this came out. A good send-off. Some really good stuff on here. Innuendo, the title track. Just Bohemian Rhapsody-esque, kind of, not really, but it's a long multi-part sort of song, obviously with this flamenco bit in it as well. Going Slightly Mad with this famous video. Headlong, another really good heavy driving track. What else have we got on here? Those Are the Days of Our Lives with another famous video. The Hitman's a heavy track as well, good. Show Must Go On, absolutely superb to finish off. Really emotional, powerful track. So a good one. This is the last, the last proper album when Freddie was alive, and a decent send off. And yeah, from the 80s onwards, this is one of their best albums, and that's Innuendo from 1991. Then we have what I think is their best album of the 80s, and that's at number 8, and this is The Works from 1984, which is their 11th album. Bit of a comeback after what I saw and many others was a disappointment in Hot Space. Certainly a lot more rocking. Starts off with Radio Gaga, which I think is not a heavy track, but I think it's a brilliant track, superb vocal on it. Tear It Up, which is another Brian May real heavy one. You've got the single It's a Hard Life, really, really cool. You've got I Want to Break Free on here, with its famous video. Was not really seen very kindly in America, where they were at the time, it was like, yeah, they're dressed up as women. I think it was banned from MTV or something like that, which is crazy. Hammer to Falls on here as well, another really heavy Brian May track. Is This the World We Created as well, as a good sort of melancholy one to finish off. Keep Passing the Open Windows, not bad. Machines Back to Humans, that's pretty good. Got the Rockabilly Man on the Prowl as well. So generally a pretty a good album all the way through. No real bad stuff on here, and a lot of really, really good stuff. So very listenable. And this was, to say, my favourite album from the 80s onwards. From 7 upwards are all their sort of 70s output, which I think most people will agree was their best period. But yeah, Works from 1984 is my number 8. Okay, so now we go into the top 7, and these are all like bangers. Gets quite hard to separate them out. Number 7, I've got Jazz from 1978. This is their 7th album, and once again, yeah, side 1 excellent, side 2 suffers a little bit. Mustafa, the sort of Arabian tinged track written by Freddie Mercury. Really, really cool. Reminds me a little bit of like what System of a Down sort of did to a degree. It's got that kind of vibe to it, but yeah, really good. Fat Bottom Girls, super famous track. You got Bicycle Race on side 1 as well. And If You Can't Beat 'Em, which is another really good one, John Deacon penned. They played that live quite a bit. Let Me Entertain You, not the Robbie Williams track, fortunately. Dreamer's Ball is on side 2. That's a really good one. More of that jazz, which I quite like as well, which is the last track on the album. Roger Taylor penned a good one. Don't Stop Me Now, of course, as well. The sort of the party favourite, fantastically used in the Shaun of the Dead movie. So yeah, a good album with a lot of good stuff on here, but with a few sort of iffy, things like Fun It is not superb as well. Dead on Time I'm not overly keen on, but still a really cool album. And so getting towards the end of the 70s, they were still putting out some decent stuff, and this one is no exception, but sits down in number 7. That is Jazz. Top 6, all fantastic albums. Queen from 1973, first album. That's my number 6. First 2 albums are very heavy, very rock, orientated. Some great stuff on here. Keep Yourself Alive is superb. Doing Alright I really like. I like it sort of the way that it's kind of really dreamy and trippy, and then Brian May comes in with his guitar and it's just ridiculous with his like, bap, 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 and it's just super loud, and you know, you can just picture the band being like, you know, we're just chilling here, Brian, and you just come in with like your, you know, ridiculous guitar, which is, I find it funny. Great King Rat I really like. Liar, probably my favourite track on the album. Son and Daughter's excellent. Jesus I do quite enjoy as well, and it finishes off with 7 Seas of Rye, but it's not the full version, it's like an intro version because apparently it wasn't finished, so they included that on the second album, which we will get onto in a second. But yeah, good, yeah, for the time, really heavy album, 1973, and absolutely, yeah, just blasts out of the gate really, and shows what they were all about. Superb album. And that's my number 6. Number 5, I've gone for the second album, Queen 2. I know some people would have this a bit higher. For me, the top 4 are all pretty much impeccable. This one also is a very, very strong album. This one came out in 1974, obviously it's their second album. Procession's instrumental start, which is good. Father to Son is excellent. Ogre Battle's on here as well. That's an amazing track, really heavy. Ferry Fella's Master Stroke I do really like, named after a famous painting. March of the Black Queen as well is another absolutely storming track, and this has got the full version of 7 Seas of Rye, which was their first hit single in the UK. But yeah, not really a bad track on here, to be honest with you. It's pretty consistent all the way through. They're my favourite ones that I've mentioned. Say side, when it was an LP record, if you like, there was the white side and the black side. The white side was pretty much Brian May stuff, and the black side was Freddie Mercury's. And yeah, both sides are very good. But Queen 2, and that is my number 5, and that's from 1974. And yeah, an excellent album, can't really fault it. Number 4, I have gone for A Day at the Races, which is their 5th album from 1996, and yeah, another excellent album. Falls away for me a little bit at the end. This is the 2011 digital remaster. Tie Your Mother Down to start off with is superb. Take My Breath Away, one of my favourite tracks of theirs of all time. Just a beautiful sort of piano ballad. Superb harmonies, all done by Freddie on here. Long Away is a really good one. Millionaire Waltz, superb. Somebody to Love is, you know, the famous gospel tinged track. White Man's a good rocker, Brian May track. Good Old Fashioned Love Boy, I love that track as well. So Drowse lets it down a little bit. The last 2 tracks, Antio Toriata, Let Us Cling Together, probably 2 of the weaker ones at the end there, but still superb album. Obviously the follow up to a mega album, but yeah, it's still really, really cool. It's a little bit more low key, but yeah, You Take My Breath Away for me is probably the standout on here, as I do love that track. So that is Day at the Races from 1996, 5th studio album. That's my number 4. The top 3, yeah, the top 3, I love them all kind of the same. It was a very, very difficult decision with the top 3, and I had them in various configurations. So eventually I plumped for Sheer Heart Attack as my number 3. Could easily have been number 1. This is their 3rd album from 1974. It's their 2nd album that came out in 1974. This one came out on the 8th of November, and Queen 2 came out on the 8th of March. So both of those 2 in the same year. This one, Brian May was not well. I think he had hepatitis or something, so they pretty much went into the studio, recorded all the parts, and then he sort of did his bits when he came out. Stunning album, loads of really good stuff on here. Brighton Rock to start off with, Killer Queen you've got, which is their first big hit single. Then you've got like a sort of medley of Tenement Funster, Flick of the Wrist and Lily of the Valley. They all roll into one another, and that's superb. Now I'm Here, Lap of the Gods, Stone Cold Crazy, famously covered by Metallica, speed metal-esque. You've got Bring Back That Leroy Brown on here, which is a really cool pastiche kind of, dancehall kind of song. And you've got Lap of the Gods Revisited at the end, which is a super catchy chorus. A few others, Dear Friends, She Makes Me, less, probably the lesser tracks on here, but still all really good, still an absolute stunning album. And for me, quite a big leap ahead from their first two, although they were both really good. I say this was my number one at one point, but yeah, I don't know, after much deliberation, it fell down to number 3, but still absolutely amazing album, superb, and an essential album to have. Sheer Heart Attack from 1974 in number 3. Number 2, News of the World, which is their 6th album from 1977. This one's quite a more rocking album. Love the cover on this as well, super iconic. This is the first Queen album I ever actually got. Pretty much begged my mum to get it, had it on vinyl, and used to be a little bit scared of the album cover, I'm not going to lie. So super iconic cover, and some of the most iconic tracks on here as well, but it's the deeper tracks for me that make the album as good as it is. Obviously it starts off with We Will Rock You, and then you've got We Are the Champions, so a fantastic start. Then you've got the absolute metal blast of Sheer Heart Attack, which is one of the heaviest tracks they've done, if not the heaviest track. The guitar on that, when you consider this is 1977, is just super heavy. Just an amazing tune. All Dead is excellent. That's written by Brian May, sings on that one as well. Spread Your Wings was a single. Fight From the Inside, which apparently has got Slash's all-time favourite guitar riff on it. Get Down, Make Love, really cool one as well, a little bit different. Sleeping on the Sidewalk, which is a sort of blues boogie. Who Needs You, It's Late, which is probably my favourite track on the album. Super power, like metal rock, this multi-part, superb song. My Melancholy Blues at the end, piano, Freddie Mercury at his best. No bad tracks on this album at all, which is the reason it's at number 2. There's consistency of it. Obviously a little bit of sentimentality comes into it as well, but I think it's just an amazing album from start to finish, with one of my favourite album covers of all time, and just nothing is very close to being number 1. Number 1, predictably, and I didn't really want to put it at number 1 just because of the predictability of it, is Night of the Opera from 1975, which is their 4th album, most famous album with their most famous song on it, which is Bohemian Rhapsody. So I didn't really want to put it at number 1 just because, it's fairly obvious, but the reason it's fairly obvious is because it's kind of their best album. Death on Two Legs, which is an amazing start. It's got a few pastiches on here, like Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon, Seaside Rendezvous, and Good Company as well. But they're all super catchy, super funny. You've got the Roger Taylor penned and sung I'm in Love with My Car. The John Deacon hit You're My Best Friend. 39, which is a really kind of cool track. Sweet Lady as well, which is a good rocking tune with the excellent, probably one of my favourite lines of all time, you call me sweet like I'm some kind of cheese. Prophet Song, which is the longest song on the album, one of their longest songs, if not the longest one they've ever done, I think. The Famous Love of My Life, Good Company, as I mentioned, Bohemian Rhapsody, which needs no real description. And the instrumental, obviously, the God Save the Queen, the national anthem performed by Brian May, which I think they finish off every show, or finished off every show, probably still do. But yeah, it's an amazingly produced album. I think at the time it was the most expensive album of all time. And yeah, an obvious choice for number one, but it kind of has to be that way. It is for me their best album, and yeah, it's a stunning piece of work. So that's the ranking. Night at the Opera, number one, from 1975. Got a couple of other bits of theirs as well. The Live at Wembley '86 CD. It's a double CD in a fat box, which everyone likes. But yeah, excellent. This is a really good live set as well. Loads of really cool stuff on here. Yeah, just loads of really cool stuff on here. Really good set list. What have we got? 28 tracks. So yeah, it's got some really good bits on there from all the way through their career. Obviously on the Magic Tour. I've got Queen Greatest Hits. I actually got this on vinyl actually as well. But yeah, Greatest Hits, the first album, first Greatest Hits one, which if you've got no other Queen albums, this is a good place to start. So it has got loads of really cool stuff on here. So yeah, coming up to, I think, Play the Game was the last album featured on here. Maybe, has he got Under Pressure on here? No, so it goes up to, yeah, the last album I think is the Game featured on there, so that's really cool. Greatest Hits 2, and there's the track listing for that. Yeah, this one's got Under Pressure, so this starts off from that era, obviously goes right up to the end, the final, right, Innuendo pretty much. So that's really good as well. I quite like the inlay as well, the booklet. It tells you a lot about all the individual, gives you the covers of the singles and what have you, and tells you a little bit about them, so that's worth having even just for that. And then Greatest Hits 3, this one obviously is a posthumous one, which is a big word. Another really cool booklet in there as well, and this one comes with the printed jewel case as well, so which is the enemy of all CD collectors, because if the jewel case gets broken on a printed jewel case, you are pretty much fucked. But yeah, this has got some really good stuff on here. This is probably the most interesting of them all. It's got some of the Freddie Mercury solo stuff like Barcelona, Great Pretender and stuff like that, and stuff that was not featured on the previous Greatest Hits is. Things like Thank God It's Christmas as well, which is a single not on any of their albums, and a few remixes as well. Under Pressure, the Raw mix. So yeah, that's worth having as well. So the 3 Greatest Hits is. And that's pretty much it really. So there's a few bits that I need to pick up. Obviously the albums that were at the bottom of the list, I will get them eventually. But that's my my ranking for Queen. First ranking I've done for a while, so hope it was worth the wait. Hope you enjoyed that. And thanks all very much for watching. And if you can subscribe, that would be super helpful. And I will catch you all next time. Thanks again. Take it steady.